this nation healthier? That wasn't a very convincing one. Who thinks it's important to make this nation healthier? So for the 500 delegates who have registered to join the President on Walkabout, please be aware that the buses will be leaving the Sandton Convention Center tomorrow, Saturday morning, between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. There are no parking facilities for you in the area, so make sure that you're here on time and enjoy your walk with the President. Earlier on in the plenary, in the opening plenary, we introduced to you some of the companies that have already made their contributions towards the raising of 1.2 trillion South African rands over the next 5 years. We also said to you these companies have been vetted and they have passed all the stringent due diligence requirements. We introduced you to some of them. Now we're going to introduce you to the rest of them, and during the breakaway sessions, others were also introduced to you. For those of you who couldn't attend every breakaway session, I'll tell you more about what happened there, but right now we're going to introduce you to the remaining companies that have committed to join President Cyril Ramaphosa and his team in growing this economy and creating jobs for our people. We're going to start off with 3 announcements from the transport sector covering both vehicles, parts and infrastructure, so the entire value chain in this space. And we're going to begin with Mr. Ryutiro Ota from Sumitomo. Not that you need it, Mr. Otto, but let me just remind you, it's 1 minute. That goes for everyone.
His Excellency President Ramaphosa, Honorable Minister, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm Ryutaro Ota from Sumitomo Rubber, South Africa, and CFO. My company is part of Sumitomo Rubber Industries, a Japanese company, the 5th largest tire company in the world, and known in Dunlop brand, Falken, and Srixon. Last year, we successfully completed a first phase of investment for PC passenger car tires, 1.1 billion. Today, I explain a second phase of investment. That is for truck bus radial tires, 970 million investment in Ladysmith. Thank you very much. And the intention is to set up new truck bus radial tires in Ladysmith. And period is from 2016 to 19. And the reasonable investment, we have 3. One is big demand is sitting in South Africa and African continent. Second is, it is better to produce in Africa than import from other countries in profit point of view. And third, we have an intention to supply truck bus tires to OE manufacturers. Okay? And economic impact. We have 3. One is additional employment. 325 new permanent employment will be created until 2019. And in addition, more than 1,000 job opportunities will be created, including indirect job opportunities by contractor. And in addition, we have economic impact in technical skill development and support to local industry. And this investment is heavily supported by Automotive incentive scheme. Thank you very much, President. That's all. Thank you for your attention.
President. Thank you very much, Sumitomo, for your nearly 1 billion rands of investment pledges. You saw the President whispering to me earlier on. So over and above being a President, he doubles up as a television floor manager. And he says, Lerato, maybe move this way so that we can take better pictures. So please meet me here. Ms. Inga Mulder from Sunrail, please join us on stage. and stand here.
As instructed. Good afternoon, everybody. The President, thank you for this opportunity. SANROL is investing 9.5 billion rands in a project in the Eastern Cape where the economic benefits will be the most needed. This project is 96 kilometers of a greenfields road that we are building, which includes 2 mega bridges. The Mtentu Bridge will be the highest bridge in Africa and in the Southern Hemisphere. The Msikaba Bridge will be the longest cable stay bridge in Africa and the 10th longest in the world. That's just to stage South Africa's engineering talent. This project will also create 8,000 job opportunities, permanent, full-time. It will also create an estimate of 16 to 20,000 indirect jobs. For the economy of the Eastern Cape, it will contribute 4.5 billion rand per annum to that province. Thank you very much.
No, Inga? Yes. Next, I'd like to invite Andrew Kirby of the National Association of Automobile Manufacturers of South Africa, colloquially known as NAMSA, plus the delegation of CEOs from the auto sector comprising the following companies: BMW, Nissan, Ford, VW, Toyota, and Mercedes, because as they make their pledge, they'll also be committing it on paper through a signing ceremony. But Andrew Kirby, can you come and facilitate and lead us in this particular gesture?
Mr. President, honourable ministers, distinguished guests, thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you our investment plans on behalf of the South African Automotive Manufacturing Association. We've been engaging with some fairly robust discussions with Mr. Davies and his team, Labour, our component manufacturers, and of course ourselves being a private business, to establish a long-range strategy that looks at what vision we can look at to grow our businesses and make a significant contribution in South Africa. We're referring to this as the South African Master Plan, and encompasses the period from 2021 to 2035. May seem like a long period of time, but this, for us in our segment, basically is 2 model life cycles. So it incorporates some very ambitious aspirational targets of more than doubling our local manufacturing volumes to achieve 1% of global manufacturing, significantly increasing local content, increasing employment, making significant contributions in our value chain, and overall, this is obviously going to be underpinned by some good, well thought through industrial policy. And Mr. Davies will make some more detailed announcements on that later, but we are very confident that this will form the platform for us to invest in South Africa and support the reindustrialization of our country. Unequivocally, all of the multinationals are committed to long-term investing in South Africa and to drive the development of a manufacturing base that can be a catalyst for continued industrialization growth and sustainable development. We will not be making announcements as each one of our OEMs because we are confined by the global schedules for investment announcements, but as each one of us, being BMW, Ford, Isuzu, Mercedes-Benz, Nissan, Toyota, and Volkswagen, we will be investing over 40 billion rand in the next 5 years. This will be focused on new model introductions, significant additional local content, and strengthening our supply base in South Africa, and of course bringing in new advanced manufacturing technology. With this increase in local content, we'll be able to also create additional jobs, and we foresee that at least another 18,000 jobs will be created within the OEMs and OEM suppliers. If one takes into account the indirect jobs that will also be created, this will be over 54,000 jobs. At the same time, because of the additional local content, we'll be increasing the purchase of locally manufactured parts and components in South Africa by an additional 25 billion rand per year. This will increase our local content on average to 42% and significantly enhance our competitiveness and our opportunity to grow our business in South Africa, Africa, and abroad. Right now, we are exporting to 149 countries around the world, and we're very proud of the fact that we now compete on the global stage as a manufacturing base. In addition, we recognize that transformation is a key component to being able to provide equitable growth, and we want to make meaningful change. So we've also embarked on a very ambitious multi-billion rand fund, which we're referring to as the OEM Transformation Fund, to help drive the transformation of our value chain and create black-owned enterprises in our value chain. So I think with the investment and the fund, we'd like to make a small contribution towards helping to stimulate the economy, grow and reindustrialize South Africa, and make a stronger contribution. Thank you very much.
That is really fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The commitment is valued.
Thank you very much. If I can call on my fellow colleagues to just sign our combined pledge.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Abbott from BMW South Africa.
Hi, I'm Abi Khotle from Mercedes-Benz South Africa.
And Mike Whitfield from the Motor Company.
Neil Hill representing Ford Motor Company of Southern Africa.
I'm Celestine Lovu from Isuzu Motors South Africa.
And I head up Toyota South Africa, and I'll be signing on behalf of South Africa. We don't have Volkswagen with us, but Thomas Schaefer has already signed.
Yes. Very nice picture.
Thank you very much. Andrew Kirby, I'm just going to forgive you there because you were really speaking on behalf of quite a big group. But ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you, we need to be as succinct as possible, 1 minute apiece, please. We're moving on to the next three announcements, and they're coming from executives and leaders in the fast-moving consumer goods sector, the FMCG sector, covering food and pharmaceuticals alike. And we're going to start off with the contributions made by Nestlé, being represented by Mr. Ravi Pillay.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'm Ravi Pillay from Nestlé. On the analogy of marathons, this is Nestlé's 102nd year in the country, and 95% of products produced are very local, 65% of local procurement from raw materials, working with 200 farmers and 13 plants in 5 municipalities spread across the country. In terms of our investment itself, it's part of the process of regular capital expenditure focusing on capacity. This year we can commit to 663 million rand, and this investment touches on green technologies, capacity and maintenance, also aimed at bolstering the brand resonance that many of you are familiar with, like Maggie, Milo, Nespresso, Cremora, Tex, Bar One, KitKat, Nestum, and Rick Coffee, and Nescafe, of course. Mr. President, this investment also is on the back of a 2016 investment that was made in Escort, where we invested 1.2 billion to increase the coffee production capacity of Nestle on the continent, basically positioning it as a hub to push for exports northwards. And this was also made possible by very creative and we think useful incentives supplied by the DTI of the 12I, and also in light of that, the foresight made was to ensure that we're investing in municipalities that can help provide predictable and reliable infrastructure. As we discussed in past occasions, Minister, with the DTI, COGTA, and various other government departments, we have come a long way to make resources more predictable and reliable so that we can be competitive and retain investment and, of course, attract more investment. On that note, just to also say that we also, as Nestle South Africa, in the newly constituted way in which we operate in Africa, Johannesburg has been chosen as the regional headquarters for a section of Africa controlling 23 countries. So for us, that is a testament to the confidence of the infrastructure. That would come, of course, with, I think, some efficient movement of people in the continent as well. But we've raised that with Minister Davies on a separate occasion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I'd like to invite Mr. Faisal Sabswari from Procter & Gamble.
Well done. Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished guests, good afternoon. I represent Procter & Gamble here. We are a 180-year-old company, one of the world's leading consumer goods companies. South Africa being one of our newer markets because we only entered after 1994. We employ directly and indirectly 3,000 people here. And we work on brands that you know and hopefully love, like Ariel and Pampers and Always Sanitary Protection and Gillette and Vicks. And I'm here to talk about Always Sanitary Protection. We are going to, yes, I am. You know, we are incredibly interested in Always Sanitary Protection because we feel that it helps women on their journey to womanhood. Every year, we reach 2/3 of the school-going girls in South Africa, and we talk to them about puberty education so that on their journey to womanhood, they don't skip school, and we can ensure that they keep participating in their education and become proud and confident participants as they grow up. To that end, I really want to thank you because yesterday the Finance Minister announced a 0 rating on VAT for sanitary protection, which shows your support. As I said, we employ 3,000 people here. We are about to increase that by 30% because we are putting in an Always Sanitary Protection manufacturing facility for the first time ever. Until now, although we are market leaders, it's on an import basis. Not anymore. In February, we are going to inaugurate a new facility at our Johannesburg plant. It's going to produce Always in South Africa. And we are very proud of this. We are also upgrading our Pampers facility. And we, in closing, would like to thank the South African government. And I want to thank our partners at DTI who help us so much in making this possible. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the girl child, I'd like to say thank you. I'd now like to invite Mr. Greg Solomon from McDonald's also to address us. McDonald's is very well known to South Africans, and if you've got kids, that Happy Meal, the Happy Meal and the toy.
Well, I'm not going to sing for you then, but ladies and gentlemen, President, it's great to see you. Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of my board members that are sitting here in the audience today, we started off with McDonald's 23 years ago. We opened up our first restaurant in Blackheath. It took us 15 years to get to our first 100 restaurants. In the last 5 years, we doubled up. And in the next 5 years, we will double up again. We serve 8 million customers every single month, almost, I would say, a quarter of the population on a monthly basis. And so this investment will be a 3 billion rand investment over the next 5 years. It will create another 7,000 job opportunities to create an infrastructure of 20,000 people that work for McDonald's. Just under 79% of all our supply chain is locally sourced, and I won't be quoting that indirect investment today as well. McDonald's prides itself, lastly, with growing talent within. We have a hamburger and hospitality university over the next accredited, and over the next 5 years we will put 12,000 people through this academia, and we'll do our part for education as well. It's a privilege to announce this to you and be part of the success of this great country.
See you, President. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg. I'd like to invite Mr. Stavros Nicolaou from Aspen also to come and tell us about their commitments.
Thank you, Honourable President, Honourable Deputy Ministers and Ministers, distinguished colleagues. It gives me great pleasure to make this announcement on behalf of Aspen Pharmacare. Aspen is a homegrown South African company, 2 decades old, started off in a 2-bedroom house on the Berea in Durban. Today, 2 decades later, we are firmly entrenched still in South Africa, but have operations in over 50 markets globally and manufacturing plants across 6 continents. The announcement we'd like to make today is a 3.4 billion rand capital investment in Port Elizabeth, Eastern Cape, one of the most economically challenged regions of our country. So the benefits will be obvious to the PE and broader Eastern Cape catchment area. Also worth mentioning is this investment is going to provide an anesthetic sterile capability for our country, turning Port Elizabeth into one of the most important and biggest anesthetic manufacturing sites or hubs globally. Anesthetics, very complex technologies. When you go under the surgeon's knife, you want to make sure you wake up afterwards. Great vote of confidence in our country and in Aspen that we will be making anesthetics complex pharmaceutical molecules for the world. Furthermore, this investment of 3.4 billion is the single largest pharmaceutical investment ever in our country. That is significant because we are not well known as a pharmaceutical destination. And I think this provides opportunities and showcases the diversity in industrialization that our country can achieve, working together with Ministers Patel and Davies' departments. As I take my seat, can I just lastly say that anesthetics will not only save lives, but furthermore will boost confidence in South Africa's scientific capabilities. Thanks very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Stavros Nicolaou. I still have quite a few commitments to announce, but may I ask you to join me in giving a warm South African welcome to our guest, one of the world's leading investment pioneers, the founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma. We continue with our commitments, and please welcome Shamil Jusub, the Chief Executive of Vodacom.
Honourable President, Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Vodacom's been operating in South Africa now for 24 years. We've invested over 140 billion into our network in South Africa. And what the commitments that government has made in terms of the allocation of spectrum in 4G and 5G in March next year and in 2020, we feel confident to confirm that we will be investing 50 billion rand over the next 5 years in telecoms in South Africa. We feel that this is an important milestone because I think 5G will give us the ability as a country to spring ahead. And really, behind all of this is really the need to make sure that every citizen has access to data and has access to broadband. And I think 5G will give us the ability to emulate what can be done with fiber. So this investment will go into 4G, 5G, as well as fiber, and will also have the impact of creating thousands of jobs, but also creating new industries. And I think we'll see a lot of new industries coming up that will help SMEs and the rest of the country as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vodacom. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Paddy Padmanathan from Aqua Power.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Mr. President, Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to be here representing Aqua Power, a company that is focused on generating electricity and producing desalinated water in 11 countries. In South Africa, we have been generating electricity at Bokport as a 40% shareholder in a 7.3 billion rand investment already. And within the next 6 weeks, we should be going into construction on one project and pretty quickly thereafter on another one. Redstone project, 11.3 billion rand investment, concentrated solar power plant again. We very strongly support the inclusive development that South Africa encourages. In this Redstone project, we will be directly benefiting 40,000 people who live around this particular project site through a 16% shareholding that they will have in this business itself. The returns on the investment, together with the community development contributions, will deliver over 2.7 billion rand to these communities over the next 20 years. In Tunisia, we will be going into construction before the end of this year, on hopefully 17.4 billion rand investment. Here again, we have got community involvement, approximately 1.7 billion of benefits to the community over the next 20 years. These are both very large projects. Typically, these projects involve 4,000 plus or minus people in construction phase over a period of 3.5 years. And then once constructed, we then have 350 to 400 people directly involved, and obviously there is a supply chain that benefits from that. So in very simple terms, in summary, 28.7 billion rand investment over the next 3.5 years. We thank South Africa for the trust and for the welcome that we have had. We're very proud to be part of your development. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm so delighted to make it here. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, often we know that what commercial banks are hesitant to do, development finance institutions will do in the interest of a nation, especially when it comes to big build projects. And so now I'm going to tell you about what the Industrial Development Corporation is contributing to the investment drive by approving projects in the manufacturing space and supporting value-added services and sectors or companies within the value-added services sectors. And in partnerships with their counterparties, the IDC would like us to tell you that they are going to contribute an estimated 3.6 billion South African rands that will help to elevate investments in the country. They will not have a representative coming up, but please can we acknowledge the IDC's contribution. Now, within that vein, I'd like to introduce to you two executives representing the BRICS New Development Bank. They are Mr. Xian Tzu and Mr. Leslie Marstorp.
Mr. President, good to see you again. You will recall during the BRICS summit in July that President Kamath had a meeting with you, and you sent both of us from Shanghai to represent him here. Mr. Xian Zhu is the Chief Operations Officer who is ultimately responsible for delivering the bankable projects which we will announce now. The bank to date have, this year in 2018, we have completed $6.5 billion of investments. Only $500 million of that number has been in South Africa. Next year, that number will increase fourfold to $2 billion. And this is in line with the pledge that Mr. Kamath made with you at the BRICS summit. $2 billion at 14.31 translates to about 29 billion rand for South Africa next year. I'll ask my colleague, Mr. Xian Zhu, to just say something about the sectors in which these are likely to be deployed. But as I do that, just the final point I'd like to make is that the bank 6 weeks ago, just after the BRICS summit, achieved one of the highest international credit ratings at AA+, which is just one notch below the highest at AAA, which will significantly enhance our ability to raise fresh capital from the international capital markets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity. As you said in your keynote speech this morning, I think that you indicated the critical importance of developing infrastructure. So as a bank, I think that serving South Africa along with other BRIC countries, we set a very ambitious goal. We want to provide financial support next year at the level of $2 billion to the key infrastructure sectors, such as transport, renewable energy, water and sanitation, and social infrastructure. We think that this is a high goal, can be achievable, because we see the sense of urgency in developing quickly the key infrastructure to support the economy. So with that, we're very proud we are here, but also we appreciate support from the government, from the market, from private sector, so we can together build up infrastructure for South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, BRICS New Development Bank. And then, as I said earlier on, we know that during the breakaway sessions, some other commitments and pledges were made, but because you couldn't be in different places at the same time, you wouldn't be aware unless you were in that session. So please allow me to read out the collective contributions that have been announced during the breakaway sessions. Allow me to tell you how it all went down, and then you can applaud. So collectively, 10 billion rands has been contributed. In the manufacturing space, it is by Adcock Ingram and Bosch Rexroth. In agro-processing and agriculture, it is Into Food. In mining and mineral beneficiation, it's Komatsu. In water infrastructure, it's Kevali Chemicals. In energy, it's Bidvest Tank Terminals. In the area of innovation and ICT, it's MultiChoice. In the area of venture capital, private equity, and entrepreneurship, we have seen Japan's Tokyo Marines invest in Hollard Insurance. And in the green economy, the Development Bank of Southern Africa will be coming through the Green Climate Fund. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, as we've been saying, if you want to find out more, the guidelines of investments, how you can go about it, please speak to the representatives of SA Invest. They have a stand in the foyer, or you can look through your conference packs and find out who to get in touch with. But there have been some big numbers spoken of today. All of these numbers have been checked, double-checked. All of these companies have been vetted, and this is productive capital that is going to help the president and his team do what they believe is best for South Africa, Southern Africa, and the continent at large. So congratulations. So without further ado, Mr. President, may I invite you to come and address us and just give us your thoughts synthesized from the conversations we've had today. and how we move forward as a nation. Your Excellency, the President.
Thank you, Program Director Lerato Mbele Roberts. As we now draw to a close with this inaugural investment conference, I do really honestly want to express my profound gratitude to all of you who have participated here, and also the demonstration of interest and enthusiasm that we've all displayed in this landmark event. And what I have been hearing from many of you who have been here all day is that this is an investment conference like no other, with its own South African characteristics, and thank you very much for being here. And my good friend, my new friend, who has already been introduced, Jack Ma, I'd like to acknowledge your presence here and thank you for having heeded our call. Jack, you might not know about this unique, wonderful thing that we've started in our country, which is called Tumamina, Send Me. Now, you are the quintessential Tumamina candidate, because I asked you to come and you said, Mr. President, send me, and now you are here. Thank you very much. Jack and I met on the steps of the World Economic Forum in the cold climate of Davos in Switzerland, and I just saw this man being followed by a horde of people. They were just thronging behind him, and I had to sort of get out of his way because I was afraid of being run over. But as I did that, he and I locked eyes. Our eyes locked, and somehow we recognized something about each other, and we shook hands, and I said, I want you to come to South Africa. And he said, I will come, I will come. And indeed, he came. He was being followed by these many people, like they follow Tiger Woods when he plays. And I wondered, what is it? But indeed, it was Jack Ma, and I want to thank you for having come to join us. We have witnessed today the beginning of a new narrative on investment in South Africa. And throughout the day, we have heard how many businesses continue to reap sustainable rewards by investing in our economy. And the reason that so many have been brave enough and forward enough to come and make announcements is because they see and recognize South Africa as an investment destination where they can make money, get good rewards for their shareholders, but also contribute to the development and transformation of our country. The case studies that have been presented do affirm indeed that South Africa is a diversified economy that does indeed present great opportunities across a wide range of sectors and subsectors of our economy. We heard investment announcements from companies in mining, forestry, manufacturing, telecommunications, transport, energy, agro-processing, consumer goods, pharmaceuticals, infrastructure, financial services, energy, ICT, and water. Let me tell you immediately that when we conceptualized this conference, we never thought that we would have such great interest from various sectors of our economy. We are hugely overwhelmed by the interest that so many of you as business leaders and so many of you as companies have demonstrated. We say thank you, thank you, thank you on behalf of the people of South Africa. Now, one of the most wonderful things, of course, which we as politicians have always harped about ad nauseum, is that we want to see investments that make South Africa depart from the mineral complex type of architecture that we have, where companies just come and extract the rock and mortar out of our country and ship it out. We've always said we want to see value add, we want to see beneficiation. So prominent amongst these announcements are the themes of value addition, beneficiation, but added to that has also been innovation entrepreneurship. The investment announced today by Amazon, for example, is a good illustration of how we are building an economy of the future and seizing on the opportunities presented by the fourth industrial revolution. Now, Amazon's re-entry and bolstering their own investment here in the way that they are going to do means that we have now embraced the fourth industrial revolution. It's no longer a concept that we need to be afraid of and need to have trepidation in terms of dealing with. We're now there, and companies like Amazon and a number of others in the ICT sector are going to give us the capabilities, and they are going to bolster the capabilities of our young people, because our young people, by and large, are already there, if not way beyond, and all they need are pathways. And Amazon and a number of other companies are going to enable our young people to get the pathways, to be coders, to be creators, and to be innovators. By establishing a cloud computing hub in South Africa, the company will enable businesses in the region to build products and solutions that are based on new digital technologies. And this is going to be a great benefit to small and medium enterprises. And the investment announced today by Vedanta reinforces our drive towards greater beneficiation, and the investment by Mara highlights the opportunities for Pan-African collaboration, and the Aspen announcement underscores South Africa's capabilities when it comes to producing really good life-saving products for the export market as well. These are just some examples of investments that have been announced today, investments that, as we have counted and recounted and calibrated and recalibrated, know that the investments that, and these are real investments that are going to be made, not just pledges, real investments that many of you have announced here. On a cumulative basis, these investments are worth nearly 290 billion South African rand. And this is phenomenal. This is great. If we never thought that this investment conference would amount to anything, today we can confidently say to amass investment announcements, commitments that amount to 290 billion, that are obviously going to yield a number of new jobs and people who are going to be employed, is phenomenal and unprecedented in the history of our country. And this is going to give our country the lift that it requires. As I said this morning, one of the key challenges that we've had is not only having to deal with our missteps in trying to deal with the problems that we've had in the past. We've had to deal with bringing in investment so that we can begin to generate growth. And this is the type of flood that we need to lift many boats in South Africa. But the most important boats, of course, are the employment of our people. And this conference has been more than worth it in terms of ensuring that we do bring to bear these types of announcements that are real. And these are announcements that I'd like to believe, as a failed businessman who have sat in a number of boards of directors, that these have been discussed, calibrated in the boards, and these are real investments that are going to take place. And as we indicated earlier today, these investments are also in addition to pledges of over 400 billion that we have received from several governments, several countries over the last 6 months. Our envoys, our ministers, and myself have been going around the world, and in the course of these journeys, we've received pledges that we are now going to follow up, and many of these amount to 400 billion rand. These still need to be really buttoned down. We still need to bring them home. But this 290 billion is what is now in our hands. And this bird that is still flying out there, we want to bring in. And that is the 400 billion birds that we want. Now, we have already started a real concerted effort to turn these pledges into firm commitments and commitments into projects on the ground. And it is for that reason that we put out the investment book. We are working to ensure that we resolve whatever blockages that may stand in the way of the rollout of these investments, acting within the context of our policies and our laws. We have also published a portfolio of projects, real projects, mostly proposed by the private sector that require financing. But some of these projects have also been proposed by our various government structures, various government levels as well. Provinces have come forward and said, we have these projects. And they have been truly, truly methodical in crafting the projects that they believe will be able to add to the economic growth in their various areas. The project book is a live, dynamic portfolio that will be updated as new projects emerge, or when some projects make their way from ideas to bankable prospects to funding and to implementation. As a country, we will continue to play to our strengths and build on the comparative advantage we have in sectors such as mining, tourism, and agriculture. This is where, as a country, have had our economy being established on the back of a mineral complex type of architecture, where we have developed quite a number of capabilities. We will play to those strengths, but at the same time, we will also be moving up the value chain to play to new strengths that we are gathering as we move on. We are working to nurture the talent and harness the energy of our young people. As earlier I said, the prepaid system was developed here in South Africa, and it was developed by young people who came up with the idea to develop this, and the SMS one, and the Please Call Me. The Please Call Me technology or innovation was also developed here in South Africa by a young person. So we have a lot of talent, and what this conference enables us to do is to give us the platform to be able to unleash the energies of our young people, especially to be able to fuel the economic growth of our country, to benefit, yes, the youth of our country, the women of our country, and the disabled people in our country, and broadly the unemployed in our country. So this conference kicks off a significant work program for our investment mobilization institutions, particularly Invest SA. And in fact, we are now unleashing a new force in our government structure and indeed in our country to say all of us as South Africans must now go out on the lookout for investments. One of the comments that really warmed my heart was that in many of the breakaway sessions, people were so impressed to hear South Africans talk so patriotically about their own country, talk up their own country, which is a great departure from what we have heard in the past, where we were talking at variance with one another. Now South Africans are talking with one voice, we are pulling in the same direction, and so may it last. That is where we want to be. So all our government departments are now, including various levels of government, provincial government, and we have a number of provincial leaders here, government leaders, many of them who are really driving the economic development in our provinces are here. MECs for finance and economic development are also here, and premiers are here. And we want all those structures of government, including various departments, from policing to health, because all of them have a bearing on the investing climate in our country. We will measure the impact of the investment that we attract and work with business to maximize the potential for job creation and socio-economic development that flows from investment. What we have announced here, we will be monitoring. We will be looking at it very closely to see whether indeed it does have the required and the desired impact that we would like to see. As a precursor to this conference, yesterday the Industrial Development Program hosted, the IDC that hosted a conference on impact investment. This is an important area of investing that we are keen to encourage. At the same time, we believe that all investment can be shaped and deployed in a manner that generates not only profit, but social good as well. And I'm particularly pleased to hear a number of investments that are gearing themselves to also benefit the workers, to also benefit the communities where those investments are located, and in the end to empower the people who work in your companies, the workers, the women, and the young people. That for us is fantastic because it is part of our National Development Program, which directs us to move towards 2030, having developed the capabilities of all South Africans. Today for us marks an important milestone along our journey of establishing South Africa as an important destination of choice. We will derive important lessons from this conference as we prepare to make it a regular feature of our calendar. The choice we're going to have to sit back and look at is whether we make it an annual event or a two-yearly event. In this conference, we're focused on re-engaging with the business community to make our investment case. And let me reiterate, we have listened and we continue to listen. One of the things that I would like you to go away with is that we are a listening government. When you say certain things, they don't go through one ear and go out the other ear. We sit back, we analyze, we internalize. Where we differ, we will tell you clearly how we differ and where we differ and where it departs from our general policy trajectory. We have reminded our local investors and also the global community of the compelling reasons to direct resources into our economy. In coming to this milestone, we have also enabled our government to think deeply about the impediments to investment and to address them. And as I was saying earlier in the panel discussion, what we're now focusing on is how we can de-risk our economy and enable investors to find South Africa a truly conducive country to invest in. Our investment envoys have brought us tough and frank feedback. And at times they have not been as friendly as you see them smiling and sitting here. They've been really tough. They've brought us tough messages, and they have given us valuable inputs and feedback. As we track the investment pipeline and continue to build our dynamic portfolio of opportunities, we will sharpen our investment mobilization tools. And in this regard, we are delighted that we will be able to work with all of you, because you have demonstrated in more than one way that indeed you are committed to continue making investments in our country. In the past, there's been accusations against business that business had gone on an investment strike. And today, maybe I can say that the strike is over. Yeah, the investment strike is over. And the gulf and the distance that has been there in the past between business and government, and between business and labor, and between business and communities, I see that gulf closing and closing. The collaboration that we are having now is such that we can move forward with great strides. And in these forums where we meet and discuss issues, we talk honestly to one another. There are no holy cows, and we do indeed make sure that what concerns each one of the sectors of our body politic, if you like, do get ventilated and do get addressed. From this, we will emerge with renewed energy and revamped institutions that will drive us towards our objective of increased investment, inclusive growth, and decent jobs. Thank you again for your attendance. We are truly humbled that this inaugural investment conference has been so hugely successful, and it has had interesting facets to it, where we've given people an opportunity to speak in the breakaway sessions, to also come and speak here in the plenary sessions. And it has not been a one-way type of engagement. Lastly, allow me, as you have already heard, to invite all of you to join me tomorrow morning in a walk in Soweto. Now, I grew up in Soweto. I was born very close to Johannesburg, and then we were moved to Soweto, so the better part of my growing life was in Soweto. But we want to take you to the most important square mile of Soweto. And that important square mile is where two Nobel laureates have lived throughout their lives, where they were able to make such a huge contribution to the development of our country. There is no place like Vilakazi Street in the whole of the African continent, in the whole world, in the whole globe, in the whole extraterritorial universe. There's no place like that. So I invite you to join me, and there are 500 of you who have already signed up, and it's fantastic that so many of you have been able to sign up to this. And before we go into the evening part, where we're going to engage with my good friend Jack Ma, it'll be wonderful if many of you join. And it's a short walk, 2 kilometers. I usually do about 10, but we're sparing you because you've spent the whole day in this conference. But lastly, thank you so much. This indeed has been a phenomenally successful conference, and it is all due to your participation. Thank you very much.